Hi, I'm Hannah.
Hi, I'm Abby.
And this is Spilling Ink,
the Ink Spill podcast.
And we're back for season 2.
Yeah, we're back for the spring season.
And what is the spring season going to hold for us, Abby?
It's all our favourite things. It's time to get editing, which is not my favourite thing. No.
Yes, I think we were talking about this, weren't we? Obviously, when we set the year out, we always said editing was probably going to be the thing that was going to be the hardest, probably the thing we were most reluctant to embrace.
I think it is, like, for me, I am very like one and done. The reason I like poetry is like I can write it all in one go. Mm-hmm. And like I'm working my novel at the minute. It's been like a real godsend through being made redundant, because it's been like one. Because I'm writing the second draft, it's kind of like one boring, just like endless, which I suppose it is editing now. It's more fleshing out at the minute, to be honest. The first draft was quite skeletal. The second draft is much more about fleshing it out. Mm-hmm. But with poetry, for me, I often kind of write it. I don't leave it alone till it's finished. And for me, that I guess kind of includes the editing process.
Yeah, that
so
makes
rather
sense.
than like, I sort of edit as I go along, rather than editing at the end, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. And I think that's why it's quite interesting that obviously you're going to be doing this from a poetry perspective and I'll do it from a novel writing perspective, because I think with novel writing there's the urge to power on and just get your first draft done.
Definitely.
And then obviously refine later. And I think, with poetry, they're just kind of short bursts, aren't they? Mm-hmm. So you have kind of got that time to go back to the beginning and comb through it. Whereas with a novel, it very much is, you get to the end and it is a task going back to the beginning again and like making sure it's exactly as you want it to be.
And it's also often entirely different than you remember, because you're so far towards the end that, like, I know I'm going to reread the beginning of my novel, because it's 83,000 words now. It's like really swelled up. I'm going to go back to that like word one and be like, I do not remember this.
I think that, that's exactly it. And I think we've talked about this before. I mean, you can lose your way with a novel, can't you? Because it is such a huge task. And that's why I think it's really important to just keep stopping and checking back at the beginning. Is the tone of voice still the same? Is the narration still matching? Because I think as you develop, as the story goes on and you kind of narration develops, actually they can become a completely different character, a completely different person.
That's
and until you edit, you don't know that.
Last season, talking to Rosa and the development of her book and just how like wildly different it is. And I think my favourite moment is when she was like, I went to Ireland and my character got kidnapped by fairies and just like went away, and like her editor saw it and was like, what the heck is this? They got cut. But fair play to her for like trying it and like exploring that idea and see where it went.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's going to be really crucial, isn't it, to go through the editing process and get some opinions from people. We've got some fantastic guests booked in, some opinions from people who've been through the editing process, so poets and writers who've actually had that experience themselves, but also we've got an actual editor coming onto the show this season.
Hannah is frothing at the mouth.
I can't wait. My God, it's not going to be a question. It's going to be interrogation central. Yeah. I've just got like a billion questions. I'm just going to
be like, Hannah, take a breath.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Because I think this is the bit that I need help on the most, kind of the editing process, and because I get so in my own head when I'm writing, and then to get someone else to try and see my vision and to kind of take that criticism based on the fact that, well, they can't see my vision, I find it really hard.
I think it's really interesting because I think we both need this, and I think the funny thing is that you want it, you're ready for it, and I am absolutely dragging my heels. And I wonder, like, I'm excited for this season to actually see at the end what we come out with, and I'm sure like you're going to find a positive experience. I'm sure I am too. Like, I'm not resistant to this. I'm not going to sit there and be like, no, my work never needs editing. It's just something that I think having that short probably ADHD attention span, I'm just like, oh, it's fine.
I know what you mean. And it's tedious, isn't it? Kind of going back through work and rewriting it, something that already took so long to write in the first place, to then rewrite it and redraft it and then get some editing feedback and then have to do it again. I think that, to me, it's a very monotonous, very tedious process.
Maybe we need to like reframe it and be like, it's gonna be like a ritual, like make it less monotonous and more like something that's kind of like giving it a routine to it, and I don't know, make it like a process and an order to it, rather than just being like dragging our feet and resenting the time.
Yeah, I think that's it. It shouldn't feel resentful, should it? But I think at the same time it does, because I mean, I just think when you finish your first draft, you're so excited, aren't you? You've kind of you've done it. You feel like you finally crossed that finish line. But in actual fact, it's like you cross the finish line, then you look up and there's actually still 5 miles to go, because you've now got to come through it again. You've now got to edit it. You've got to rewrite really significant chunks of it.
Or you find massive plot holes that you're just like when I read the first draft of my book, I was like, oh, it's great, like everything's here, I just need to flesh this out. And I got like 2/3 of the way through and I'd written in bold something like, she runs away
But nothing more.
And from here. And I just carried on.
Yeah.
And clearly, because I think I mentioned it possibly previously in one of the episodes in season 1, I just was like, oh, I just got stuck. But because I wasn't ever looking back, I never saw it.
Yeah.
And I just had like people reading this draft and no one mentioned it. And I was like, guys, why don't you say anything? They were like, oh, clearly.
I do exactly the same thing. I don't know if you... So obviously you're working on your poetry collection, but when you've written your novel... I always, if I can't be bothered writing a section, I just put insert bit about this here. And it's so true. If you don't read back, actually, you forget that you ever put that.
Yeah.
But I just find sometimes if it's quite an emotionally heavy scene, or if it's kind of like a bit of waffle and a bit of description that I just haven't got the time for because I want to get to the juicy action or the juicy drama, I'll just put it in square brackets, do this later. And then I guess it's kind of having to face up to the things that you've put off. And again,
consequences of your actions.
Oh, God, yeah. But I think... yeah, the editing process really is crucial. It is a key factor of it. That's why we've dedicated a whole season to it.
Yeah.
So,
and we've got a lot to learn, and that's the joy of it for this. Like, we're, looking at season 1. Season 1's come out now, and we're recording this, and there's a similar time gap for us recording as for people who are listening. And we've had some stats and people are listening, and it's really good to know that the community is behind us and stuff. But at the end of the day, we also want us to learn from this, and we want to grow as writers and develop as facilitators and sort of know more what just the community sort of work with a lot, which is really nice.
Let's recap. I feel like we're charging ahead into this season, but we're in season 2, aren't we? So
yes, there's a whole other season before this.
Yeah, talk us through the roller coaster that was season 1.
It's been great. It's gone out. People like it. We've had lots of really positive feedback, lots of really good comments, which has been really nice.
Yeah.
We spoke to some amazing people. We had some really good guests on.
We did.
I just can't believe, like, it's very nice for us to kind of sit here and be recording season 2 and already like looking back at a really good first season.
Yeah, we were saying it feels slightly odd because the way that these platforms work, you don't actually get any stats until 30 days after they've been released. So kind of, we were saying it's almost as though we were talking to the void of Spotify. We were talking to the void of like what's the other one called? Apple. We put it on that as well, don't we? We're everywhere. And that's the thing. We just weren't
We're
sure.
everywhere. Names two
places. We're in limited places. But yes, I think it was hard because we were wondering, is anyone actually listening to this? So to those of you who kind of dropped a little comment or who mentioned us online and just said, oh, do you know what? We're really enjoying this. That really, really meant a lot to us, didn't it? Because like we had no idea if anyone was listening. And when we got this stat report, it all sounds very official. Abbi will, with her marketing background, will deal with that every day. Meanwhile, I was like, oh my God, people are listening. It was it was really nice to see. And we've done quite a few ink spills since we released the first season as well. So that's been lovely because people really have been coming up to us and just talking about how much they've enjoyed it and how beneficial they found it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was at a poetry event the other week and someone came up and was like, do you run ink spill? And I was like, oh yeah, I do. Hi, nice to meet you. And we had a good chat. And he was like, yeah, I've been listening to your podcast and like, I love what you've been doing. And I was just like, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
I know, it's lovely. And I think as well, just knowing that it's benefiting people has been a huge kind of thing for me because a lot of people have, I mean, we talked to some people in the last season, but just ourselves when we discuss our writing experience, we've said it can be quite isolating and you can sometimes feel a little bit lonely really. So I know quite a few people have said they've just had it on in the background and they've just had some chatter on whilst they're writing, and even if it's just two girls sat on a sofa nattering away putting the words to right, if that's helping people then I'm happy to do it. Yeah,
at the end of the day, me and Hannah are facilitators. Like, ink spills a community. It is more about the people listening than the people doing the talking. And while we are here to learn for ourselves, and like especially this season's gonna be really useful for us, and even just having the motivation to write, I know that's been really helpful for like us.
It has,
and I'm sure we'll talk about this with our creative projects, or say where we're at going into season 2. It's really nice for us to just hear that we're helping people.
Yeah, and I think what I loved, I mean, we've talked about the fact that we kept it very northern-centric, didn't we, with our guests in season 1. But in actual fact, it was nice to have such a variety because we've got you coming at this from a poetry perspective, I'm coming at this from novel writing. And so obviously it was really lovely speaking to Faye and Rosa. We were having both like flip sides of the coin, really. And then it was really nice to speak to Alice, who kind of put an artistic perspective on it, didn't she? She
her insight was really useful.
Insights
and very tangible with writing.
So and we took a lot of inspiration from those conversations that we had into the workshops with Inkspill.
Absolutely. And it's been really handy for that.
It has. It's just been really nice kind of seeing people embrace different ways of writing, and it was a really good first season, and it just kind of has got me all ready for season 2 now. Yeah,
definitely. Should we talk about creative projects and sort of have a check-in?
I don't know. What do you want to know? Because if I've finished it now, haven't.
I mean, if you do you want me to start? Because I'll hold my hands
you
up.
start, because then I'll know it's a safe space, and I can admit to my tardiness.
Okay. To catch people up, for anyone who's sort of getting into this, in our intro episode back in January, me and Hannah talked about how we were both going to write creative projects alongside this podcast, which is kind of the sort of structure of this podcast, is to encourage people to write whatever they want, if that's a play or a collection or a novel, it's up to you. We both sort of announced them to kind of keep us
accountable.
That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, keep us accountable. And I very ambitiously announced that I was going to do a collection. And I think it was in the intro episode we talked about a collection being like 60, 70, 80.
An insane amount.
A lot of poems.
Yeah.
And then sort of towards the end of January, I found out I was being made redundant, and it's been a really stressful few months since then. I am, at the time of recording, happy to say I have a job again, which is nice. So I'm going to be employed, which is a lovely feeling.
Yeah.
But it definitely took a massive chunk out of creative energy and time, and I'll hold my hands up. The whole point is, being honest, I am not where I hoped I was for this project, and I think it's time to acknowledge. I think I'm going to reduce it from a full collection down to a chapbook or a pamphlet. I'm not sure how long those need to be. I've currently written about 20 poems, but I did write them, the majority of them, while I've been on quite strong painkillers, so I'm not sure about the quality.
So the editing process is going to be wild.
It's going to be so
I wonder
interesting.
what I meant by that.
Yeah, I wonder why do I think that line's great and it's got 4 commas in it?
Something like that. But I think it's really good though, because that you've kind of taken that time to think, actually, what is going to be achievable for me? What am I actually going to be able to produce, given everything that's going on in your life as well at the moment? But when I asked you what success looked like to you, you just wanted to have that physicality, didn't you? You just wanted to be able to hold something in your hand, and you're still going to achieve that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, that's really, it's really helpful. I think there's definitely a period where I really mourned it, because I haven't written a full collection since being at uni, and I was I really want to use this time and this motivation, and I really want to have something finished. And I think the thing with me being neurospicy and being a real perfectionist is that I have a ridiculously high bar for myself that doesn't apply to anyone else. Anyone else in my life is able to not fail, but not meet expectations, and I can manage it. But with myself, I find it very difficult.
Yeah.
So kind of acknowledging I wanted a full collection. A full collection is absolutely not in my remit, and I want to be able to I want to engage fully with this podcast. I want to edit as we're doing editing. So I might find myself, I've written about 20 poems. I think some of them are going to end up in the slush pile, and that's okay. Or I might Frankenstein a poem out of 3 or several, whatever. So I probably will continue writing alongside editing, but I at least have something to kind of take into this process, which is nice. And I guess this is a note for anyone who's listening. If you started being I'm going to write a novel, and you're hitting this point now and you're rejoining us, and you maybe I've only written 3-4 chapters. Please don't worry. You've written 3-4 chapters. That's really cool. If you've even if you've just written one poem, and you take that poem through the editing process, you've written a whole poem. That's really, really cool and really exciting.
Absolutely. I think it's that idea, isn't it, of kind of just being kind to yourself in a very chaotic, busy world. We all kind of have, this is why I'm quite reluctant to set New Year's resolutions, because again, it's this idea of setting a bar for yourself that if you can't achieve, you just feel rubbish, don't you? But at the end of the day, we're all trying our hardest, and the unfortunate reality is, for us, writing is a hobby. It's on the side of full-time jobs, and that'll be the same for a lot of people listening as well, I think. And so we've got to be kind to ourselves. I said I was going to write a novel. To be fair, I am making quite good progress.
You are, yeah.
I've got to the halfway mark now. But after learning from season 1, I've mapped out the rest of it. So obviously that's what we're talking about, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Make sure we've got that skeleton in place first and planned out each chapter first. I think it was Rosa we were discussing that with. So now I've got the plan in place. It's just a matter of, like I said in season 1, putting the meat on the bones. So I've done that for the first half, and each chapter I've been submitted to my write group, so I've been getting that kind of feedback and stuff. So that's been really helpful. And I suppose I've kind of been trying to edit it as I've gone along.
Yeah, fantastic.
So that has been brilliant, but I've not done a first draft at all. And we said we kind of, in the first season we'll get a first draft of a thing done. No, it's not happened.
It's not happened.
I'm not gonna make myself feel bad about that. I've put a good effort in to get to the halfway mark. So
I mean, also how cool is that? We're both sort of sat here going, You know, we're doing it again. We're being so nice to people. I'm being nice to you, nice to me. But we have no generosity spirit going, oh my gosh, you hit the halfway mark. Like, you've been working this novel as long as I've known you. Like, that is so exciting.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's because I got writer's block when I was about a third of the way in. And I just couldn't get past it at all. And so I put it to bed for a bit. And it's been really nice kind of revisiting it here with quite a few of the suggestions that the guests have given us.
Oh my god, they were so good as well.
And it's got the cogs turning again, so you know it has been so helpful.
Good.
So how exciting that now we're moving on to season 2 and we're going to get the opportunity now to speak to yet more guests and get yet more kind of insight. Shall we kind of discuss the guests that we've got coming on this season? Shall we name drop now, because we didn't do that last season?
We didn't. I think just quickly, like, it's really funny because we were quite secretive last season. Yeah. We were like, because we had amazing guests. We had a fab time. It was really, really good. But we were quite like, oh, we must keep this shrouded in mystery. And I don't know why. So, yes.
I don't know why. We were kind of like doing grand reveals, but in actual fact, no, it's exciting. Let's just
so exciting.
Get it out there.
Should we start with episode 2?
Yes. Yeah.
Episode 2. In fact, you should introduce the guest.
Yeah,
it's
cool. Well, I've mentioned in the past that I am a part of a writers group. Again, it's kind of feeding in a lot to what we were discussing last season in terms of being collaborative, sharing work, getting feedback is the best thing you can do. So as part of this writers group, it's actually facilitated by Gareth, and he is an editor. He's a freelance editor on the side of being a writer himself. He's a very, very good writer as well. I've actually had the honour of reading and kind of giving feedback on his work, which always feels a little bit intimidating, kind of giving an editor notes. But it's been nice. It's been really, really good. And I've obviously then also had the privilege of having his feedback on my work. And yeah, it's been brilliant. And I know that through the feedback I received from Gareth and the experience he's got, he is a very, very good editor. So our first guest will be Gareth. We're going to pick the brains of an actual living, breathing editor.
Yeah. An
industry professional.
And you're very excited about this.
I am, because there's just so much I want to know. There's I think for me, I see it's a relationship, isn't it, between a writer and an editor? And I've got questions in terms of, well, you know, what do you do if that relationship isn't working? Or like, you know, if you're getting feedback and you just don't think that editor understands you, like, I really want to know, like, what do you do in that situation? I mean, I'm intrigued. Maybe that's just my like drama brain. Like, also, you know, give me the goss.
Hannah wants the tea very badly.
But I do, because I think I've been in situations in the past where somebody's given me feedback on my work that I've not necessarily agreed with, and I've maybe actually felt quite uncomfortable with the feedback they've given me as well, because I think sometimes people can be a little bit full on with their criticism.
Yeah.
And at what point do you actually say, look, there's been critical and there's been just quite disrespectful. So I think I'm intrigued to know if there've been any experiences like that in the past and how you can kind of deal with that.
Yeah.
So Gareth
is fantastic.
Guest number 1.
Episode 2 is with Adrian B. Earle, who is a poet based in Birmingham. He's absolutely wonderful. It's like, I'm really excited to talk to him. We've both read his collection 5,000 Hertz, which is just one of the most phenomenal pieces of writing I've read in a while. It was really, really good to, like, it's just good when your guests are talented, isn't it? It's really helpful, and it's just,
it does help.
It makes it easier to interview them.
Yeah.
Adrian has 2 books published and is just fantastic, very involved in like the sort of Midlands poetry scene and does a lot of work down there. He is also in the family. He's my partner's brother, and he's also my partner's brother, who is also our editor.
They're just an annoyingly talented family. Like,
it is
they are
insane.
wildly talented.
Yeah. The pair of them are like a proper dynamic duo.
Yeah, just the amount of kind of credits being associated with their names at the moment is just madness. Both of them.
Yeah, they are absolutely wicked. And we're going to talk to Adrian about how he got his work ready for publication, how he found getting published, and how he was being edited by other people for getting something physically published, and like that whole journey, and having done it twice, like what did he learn the first time. He's just gonna be an absolute gift, and it's gonna be great.
He's gonna be brilliant.
And he's just also just a really nice guy, which just really helps.
And then our third and final guest is somebody who we actually met together, didn't we? We were attendees at Rose Condo's Attic Stories in Huddersfield. Yes. So yeah, it was really, really nice to meet him, and I'm so excited that he's actually agreed to be a guest on the show. Yeah,
he's called Kalain Wood. He has been absolutely killing it. He's kind of just like launched himself onto the scene, and I think he's been at like Glastonbury and other like quite big festivals.
When we saw him, he very kind of like just slyly slipped in, just like 12 hours ago I was performing at Glastonbury, and we were like, Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. In fact, the joke is we passed him on the way in, and because we're just so chatty, and he had a dog with them.
He had a really cute dog.
Really cute dog. We were just chatting away because we hadn't done any research before we'd arrived. We kind of just there to like Rose. I mean, Rose is such a huge figurehead in the sort of northern poetry scene,
really is, yeah.
and we were just kind of there to support and sort of see how it was going, and you know, the joy of being a sort of night facilitator. You want to go and see other nights and see how people do it and learn and sort of exchange trade secrets, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Colleen was absolutely fantastic, and we both just sat there with like open mouths, just being like, oh my gosh, like she gets such good guests. Like Rose absolutely kills it. If you are in the local area, please go to Attic Stories. It is phenomenal.
Yeah. I remember what blew me away about Colleen though. We didn't realise he'd started performing. Do you remember that seamless kind of entrance?
It was beautiful.
I remember like you said, I got goosebumps because I was like, gosh, that's a way to do it, isn't it? Like his performance as well is brilliant. So I mean, yes, he's on this for the kind of the editing season, but we might pick his brains on that kind of thing, the performance element as well. I know that is a future season, but God, I remember just being like, this guy's good.
Yeah, you can see why he's at Glasgow and things like that. So yeah, it's an absolutely stacked programme. We're pretty proud of it. We're pretty pleased with it. We have no complaints. I'm just looking forward to like chatting to people. I think what I learned from last season is, you know, the last season were all people we'd met or interacted with sort of casually or professionally or like not in an interview scene, and actually the things that came out interviewing them was just so interesting because there were some people, like I've known Rosa for years and I've always known Rosa as a fantastic writer, but actually sitting and listening to how she like structures work and like the depth of her knowledge and like Faye and like how she reflects on performing and how she's gotten here and her bravery
and like their journeys, definitely.
and it just was amazing. And I was just sat there, I was just like, I'm so glad that we're sat in a position to like draw this out of people and really enjoy it. It was just so exciting.
Yeah, it really was. It's just going to be, it just feels like a privilege, doesn't it, to get to speak to so many different people and to learn from them. So it's shaping up to be another fantastic season. So yeah, please do just keep sticking with us. We're going to be coming back each week, aren't we, for this season, for the spring season.
Well, even better, we have a 5th episode this season.
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah.
Which I just wanted to sort of mention because last season the plan was always to do 4, 1 with us, 3 with guests, and that was it. And we sort of reflected on it as it was coming out, and we realised that we had such a great time chatting with Alice, who was our last guest / episode of the season. And we were just like, we really felt like we wanted a bit more time to like enjoy that time with Alice without having to feel we just round off an episode, round off the season. Yeah.
Just reflect a little bit because we really did kind of, we went through so much. It sounds like we went through like a trauma, but we really kind of went through a lot with the people that we spoke to. So I think that final episode for a little bit of reflection is going to be crucial, just to give us a little bit more breathing space. So it might not be a full, whole episode. It might just be a little one at the end. But I think it's just nice to closing thoughts really on the season.
Yeah, and sort of reflect on what we've learned. And well, I mean, something I'd like to do in a second is like identify what we sort of anticipate learning from the season, and then in episode 5 we can kind of look back and go, we wanted to learn more about this. Have we learnt that? And if not, like maybe use that as a little bit of research for ourselves. And if we haven't learnt it, let's go and find out. And if we have, let's like acknowledge that, because like it's going to be like a really, I think last time was quite, and I don't know if you agree with it, felt very emotional. Like a lot of that like getting started momentum felt like a lot of like emotion attached to it, whereas this one feels a lot of like learning and like skill and.
Well, I think for us, we had that double-edged sword of we were getting started on creative projects, but we're also getting started on a huge project of the podcast itself. Like, Abbi and I have never done this before. It's something we've always discussed, and it really was a learning curve for us. I mean, we pretty much, anything that could have happened did happen in the last season. We lost audio. Yeah. We had internet issues.
We've had tech issues.
Yeah, tech issues. And so we've learned so much. So it's actually quite nice this season to relax into it a little bit more and be like, right, we can actually enjoy it this time. And, so I think, it's a really good point. It kind of, we can relax, we can enjoy this. We've got this, and people are listening and enjoying, and it's good.
Yeah, I mean, also like we should probably just thank our editor quickly, because
why not?
Our incredible editor Alex, who was so dedicated the last season and really talked us through so much, and has been very like generous with his time and just like patient, very patient.
The most patient person I've ever seen.
Because Hannah is not joking when we say we didn't know what we were doing. We're like, we can do a podcast, and he's basically made it happen.
Yeah, God, yeah. And I mean, it just even editing till the
oh my gosh
early hours of the morning just so that we can get it out on the release day. I mean, we could not have done it without him. So a huge shout out to Alex, because really this simply would not have happened without you.
And it would not look half as good without him either. We would.
No, absolutely not. I don't know what we're thinking. We're like, oh yeah, no, this sounds fun.
Yeah, we've got mics, we've got a camera.
Let's do it. God, no, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so huge thanks for that, because it's been a game changer. I think the thing for me is finding like a structure, a routine, something that I can kind of like employ naturally as like part of a step, rather than feeling like I have to like store away loads of poems and then edit. Like something that I can kind of naturally integrate into the creative process would be really nice.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel like a huge lump sum job at the end.
Yeah, and I think I'm in a really lucky position, whereas like I am working on this like chapbook for this. I am also trying to finish my novel. I think so what you'll ask as a novelist will be really applicable to like quietly behind the scenes project stuff for me. So I'm like going to benefit from both.
Yeah.
And I think the joy of what we learned last season is that everything kind of works. Like we talk about like being a novelist and being a poet and like having these like separate identities and separate skill sets, but actually stuff that was suggested for you as a novelist really worked for me as a writer and as a poet, and vice versa, I'm sure. Like
you take little bits and you adapt it to what you need, don't you? I guess.
Absolutely. So yeah, for me it's finding some kind of strategy, some kind of routine, ritual, some structure that will fit into me as a writer, me as a poet, that will just kind of like enhance my work rather than like slowing it down.
I think that's good. Yeah, a really good one. Anything else that you kind of think you want to get from the season, or is that?
I think that's the main one. I think I definitely just like to learn more about it generally, because it's something like I haven't met Gareth. Gareth is more in your like sort of circle of contacts, and I'm really excited to hear from that. I'm really excited to hear how like Adrian prep work for publication, and how Colleen, because we didn't mention Colleen's got his own self-published sort of pamphlet style chapbook.
It does. Yeah.
We really need to find out what a pamphlet and what a chapbook are. The definitions.
I do really feel that they are closely entwined. We will definitely do our research on that.
Maybe like a glossary.
Shine some light on it or something.
Yeah.
But I think for me personally, I really just want to know, how do you know that you've got the right editor? Because I think the relationship between writer and editor is such a precious one, and it can be such a fragile one. So what do you do if it's not working for you? What do you do if you maybe don't agree with what somebody said, or at what point do you think, actually I'm taking this too personally, I need to be more open-minded, really? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I think for me it's more about relationships, because I think writing, as we've said before, is such a vulnerable thing. So what do you do in terms of finding an editor? What do you look for? What traits? What needs to click for it to be a successful relationship?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's like, I don't want to like, I always think the word intimate sounds, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much. If intimate always feels like very like sexual. I don't know, that's just me.
Yeah, but it's about proximity, like, as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, is that I think we underutilise like intimate as like actually having that relationship with someone where you are like, especially like all writing is incredibly personal. It doesn't matter even if you're writing like a non-fiction biography, like someone in there, you're going to have some root of yourself in there.
You absolutely are. And I think, I don't know, patterns like poetry more so is a little bit more intimate, maybe a little bit more vulnerable, but also novel writing is, because you just have the disguise of characters, don't you, in the novel?
Yes. Yeah, that's all protection.
I've read quite a few pieces from people who've said, oh, in actual fact, that character's my dad, or that character's me. But of course, they're kind of using the disguise of the character to almost hide behind, whereas in poetry, you've very much got to wear your heart on your sleeve in that sense, haven't you?
Absolutely.
So I think, there is still that element of vulnerability, and the second that anybody starts to say, actually, I don't agree with that, you need to change that and tweak that, when it's something that's personal to you, that's a really tricky boundary to navigate around, isn't it? So
absolutely, I totally agree.
I think that's obviously what we're hoping to get from the season. And I'm sure as well, I'm certain with the guests that we've got, that those questions will get answered.
I think the big thing for us is actually going to be like keeping the episodes to like roughly an hour.
I know. We said, didn't we? We're like, right, we don't want them to be any longer than 40 minutes. Okay, fine. 50 minutes. All right, fine. An hour and a half. Like, it just got a bit crazy, didn't it, last season?
I think at the end of the day, we'd rather it was long and we shared what we've learned from people. And I don't want to sit there with something on the cutting room floor that like was brilliant. And at the end of the day, people, our listeners will cut around as they need to.
They will.
So yeah, we're probably going to keep what I mean is it's probably still going to be like an hour and a bit, but it'll be keeping it at an hour and a bit rather than going any further.
We're really trying our hardest to kind of keep it concise. But I think we've really refined the questions we're asking this time so that they're valuable questions as well.
Yeah, I hope so.
So hopefully, yeah, it's going to be just a much more smooth sailing this season.
Yeah, people have to stick around and find out, basically.
Yeah. What is that? That's hooked. You could be a radio DJ, like, you know, when they play that song, like, find out after this.
Yeah,
You come
exactly.
back in.
Very
but I
much.
think what we do need to do, obviously, before we sign off from our first episode today, is we need to set some homework, get the teacher vibes out.
Classic, yeah.
So we have, obviously, if you missed the first season, we always wanted to keep a little bit of the Ink Spill essence involved, and as part of Ink Spill, every month.
Yeah, don't decide.
I know. I don't think I'd be in my heart, given if we did more than one a month. So every month we set a theme and we set kind of like some creative tasks that we do. And so we said, right, why do we bring that to the podcast too?
Yeah.
So for our creative tasks for the first episode back, I think we said it'd be nice to work towards having a finished first draft at the end of last season, didn't we?
We did.
And we both held our hands up and said, look, realistically, that's just not good. They're not happening at this time.
It's not happening, and also at the end of the day, the whole point of this is that it's honest.
Yeah.
We're not going to sit here and pretend we've done stuff we haven't. So.
No, we're only human at the end of the day. So I think as long as you've got something to take into this editing season. So I've got half a novel, you've got 20 poems.
Yeah.
Like something to take in that you can be editing, I guess. So we're talking about...
And also, if people have work that, you know, if what they wrote for the... Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt. No, I don't know already. I was going to say is if people have started something for this project and they haven't written a load on it, but they have other work they want to edit, please do. Please don't feel you have to finish the work that you've started for this project. If you have like a small handful of collections that you wrote 6 months ago, an ink spill or something, please bring those. Or like if you've got something from the workshops, or you've got like another novel you started or anything like that, please don't feel you're stuck in this. Like this is to work for you.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I'll probably do the same thing. I think I'll reflect based on what we learned from our guests on other projects that I'm working on as well.
Makes
So
sense.
I think the tasks that we're going to set for this week, then take whatever you've got, and we were talking about this idea of self-editing.
Yes.
So before you take it to someone else, actually have a quick read through from the beginning again, and just really be scrutinise yourself.
Yep.
Are you saying what you want to say? Just basic spelling and grammar checks as well. I think that's a biggie. When we're just stress typing, or not stress typing, if we're in the zone and we're just typing away, just look back, because you might not actually realise that you made no sense at all in that sentence that you wrote 7 months ago. So bit of self-editing to start with before we take it to the big boss.
The big boss.
The
is that what
editor.
Gareth
The
is?
big cheese. I'll take it to Gareth.
I love that. Yeah, so we just wanted to keep it simple, just something sort of easy back in, because I don't know if people have been listening alongside, so they'll have had a big gap and now they're coming back to the work, or if people are sort of like, if you've only found our podcast recently. But yeah, just keep it super simple, super low key, and just get your basics done.
Yeah, read through your work and just edit it yourself, you know, before you take it to that next stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
what
it
we have to do
for our first episode, really, isn't it? We said everything we wanted to say.
I think we have. Just doing a quick brain check, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're done.
I think so.
Season 2.
Season 2, we've got lift off then. So we will see you next week for our first guest, Gareth.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We'll see you then.
See you later.
Bye.